Join us on the Swim Monkey.
Swim Monkey TV. On the Monkey.
Joe, this is the
Yes, sir.
the fifth Sunday of August, fifth Monday. This is it, 31. We're almost to September 2020, and here we are, stories with Sid and Joe and Sid.
Hours away from September 1st, which I can't believe because the last 4 months have been slow but fast. So it's crazy. It's crazy, and I know that you down there in South Florida, you guys are still in the midst of all the craziness, and I mean, so are we. But
our numbers keep getting better, and our pool is open. We got pool, ocean pool, teaching pool, lots of stuff happening. September 1 is a big day here. Actually, it's our eldest 25th birthday in a few hours.
Wow. Are you feeling young or old or what? I'm
feeling younger. I've taken COVID to task, Joe. I have made really good use of this time for my personal development. And speaking of my development, the young lady we have on this evening has some great sights and insights into personal development. One of the finest Olympic athletes we've ever had. And so you're going to enjoy that, I know, Joe. And of course, also, that's Katie Hoff. We'll have her in a minute. And we're going to also have on, one of the top coaches ever in USA Swimming, and probably one of the most underrated coaches, who was always kind of behind the scenes for decades doing unbelievable things here in Boca Raton at Mission Bay, certainly all over the world. And he's traveled. He was a national team junior coach for many years, worked with Mark Schubert here and there and everywhere. And that would be Mr. Jack Roach. I think of him as a lifeguard.
I'm pumped for these guys.
I say we bring them in, Joe. Let's find out what they're doing. There's Katie.
Hi, guys.
Hi, and
let's get the party started.
Oh, so Katie, where are you coming from today, and what's going on in your world?
Yeah, so I am coming from Weehawken, New Jersey, which is a 6-minute ferry ride right across to Midtown. So I can see Hudson Yards from my window right now.
Oh, man. So you've been up there this whole quarantine time?
No, we had some trips. So my husband's family lives in Michigan, and in Weehawken, we live in a tiny little 800 square foot apartment. So after about 3 weeks, we still loved each other, but we needed some space. So we did 2-week quarantine in Michigan, and then spent about 6 weeks with my husband's parents, and just was able to have some more space and green grass and be able to enjoy some time with family. So we've been back in Weehawken for about 6 weeks or so.
Okay, good. You don't want to overdo Weehawken.
Is that the coolest name for a town? Is that the coolest name for a town or what?
Weehawken? Yeah, it is. It's actually like a little history, which I'm not a history buff, but
look us up with the history.
Alexander Hamilton, literally, 500 feet from our apartment, that's where they had the duel.
Wow.
That's what Weehawken's known for. And he can see he goes up with his gun and isn't going to shoot the guy. And the guy, I forget who's the guy that he.
Aaron Burr.
Yes, and Burr is straight, and then
bam.
Nice.
And well, speaking of historical big shots, how about Jack Roach? Where are you coming from, Jack? What's going on in your world?
Hey guys, how you doing?
We're pretty good.
Well, thank you for having me on, especially with Katie Hoff. Can't beat that. I'm in Norfolk, Virginia. Probably a backstory, which might be a little more interesting. On March 6th, I drove to Greensboro, North Carolina, and picked up Aaron Pearsall. Aaron and I drove to the mountains of North Carolina, Blowing Rock, and we spent a week up there trail running with my dogs. we start back on March 12th and get back to Virginia. It was Monday. I'm not sure what day that was, 13th or 14th. And I'm going to take Aaron to an airport to get ready to do a clinic. And he comes downstairs. He's staying upstairs, and he walks downstairs and goes, "What do you think if I stay here?" It looked like things were going to kind of lock up, right? Well, to kind of shorten the story, I dropped him off at the airport this morning.
Nice.
Aaron
So
Pearson.
had we made it till September 6th, it would have been a half a year.
Wow.
Oh my gosh.
In the meantime, we built a boat, we shaped 2 surfboards, and we refurbished my back porch.
Now, did you catch a few waves?
Oh boy, did we surf.
I know that Virginia Beach. Oh, you went to the Outer Banks with Aaron. Had he ever been before? Had he been to the East Coast?
Well, he and I went on a surf trip about in 2016 on Hatteras. So yes.
Wow. Well, you know what? I saw your friend Kurt Winans already posted here, Jack. He put Jack Roach equals the Boca Raton Beach Patrol. And I know plenty of the guys. I know the captain. I know the we're there every day, 6 days a week since March 16th. So, and I knew these guys. You're a legend still. They tell a story, Katie, get this. Here's what Jack, and Jack, correct me if I'm wrong, because maybe it gets kind of embellished through the years. But Jack and his dog would basically, run the length of Boca Raton, which has got to be 10, 12 miles. And then they get to the inlet, and the two of them would swim across. Because do you live down in Deerfield or up in Delray or something? I don't know. So he was the barefoot postman of the 20th century, right? So what's the deal, Jack, when you were a beach patrol in Boca Raton? How did that go? What's the real story?
Well, I spent 20 years in South Florida. Right after I went into the Marine Corps and got out of Vietnam in the VA hospital in like 1967. And I moved to Fort Lauderdale. My uncle lived in Fort Lauderdale. He's no longer alive. And he owned a hotel on the Gulf Ocean Mile. And I was kind of recouping from a wound. And he said, well, come down here and spend some time. And after about 3 months, I got on the Fort Lauderdale Beach Patrol and went to school there. I went from Lauderdale to Boca lifeguarding, from Boca to Delray. As South Florida got busy, I kept moving north. But gosh, I see Jim Shoemaker's name pop up. I see Kurt. I see Mark Hesse. I see Brendan Hansen. And, there are only 2 things that shape our lives, right? People and events. So all of these memories are flooding into my mind. I can remember Jim, and I think he taught me how to row an ocean dory, right? And it's just Kurt. I knew his dad very well. Used to watch him coach swimming at the Lauderdale High School. It's just wonderful memories flooding in through my mind.
So you came on the perfect show for that then. I mean, all the memories, you came on the perfect show.
Jack is the most interesting man ever. I don't think people realize how many, I've known Jack for over a decade, and I still
he's coming from the Gold Coast down there. He's in Brisbane. Tim McKee, We'll pull him in for the after show, Jack. We might even get him on if he has a question for you. But
go ahead, Katie. Katie.
Oh no, I was just saying, I feel like I still find out things about Jack, even though I've known him for over a decade. Jack, you should write 5 books.
So Katie, tell us, when you were very young on your first national team, is that where you met Jack, or before you traveled? How did it go down?
So I wish I had met. So we've talked about this actually recently, Jack. I feel like we knew each other from afar, but we didn't really truly connect until, after 2008. I really could have used his support and guidance and friendship in 2004, which was my first national team. But we really, really became close. I would say after 2008, 2009.
That
Yes,
Beijing Olympics, right?
After Beijing, yeah. So that's definitely when I feel like we always kind of like said hi at meets, and I knew obviously of Jack, but in terms of like having, you know, more of a closer friendship and relationship, it was 2009.
Yeah, I specifically remember when I met Katie, and it was, I met her in 2008. Our relationship wasn't formed until after that, but I went to a swim meet, and Brendan may be able to voice in on this, but I went to a swim meet after working with the Texas postgrads right before the Olympic trial. Actually, it was during NC2As when Eddie and Chris left. They came up to Colorado Springs, and it was Brendan, Aaron, Ian Crocker, Neil Walker. It was just all of these great people.
Incredible group. Yeah.
We went straight down to a swim meet, and I think it was Missouri. And when we went to that meet, Katie was sitting at the start end of the 50-meter pool by herself, and all of these guys from Texas and myself walked in, and they all knew Katie very well. We sat down and started talking, and they introduced me to Katie, and I can remember walking away from that conversation, and I remember thinking, I need to form a relationship with her. She's got something that I don't have. I need to learn how she does it.
Oh my gosh. That's just
that's what started.
Jack to say.
Okay.
That's what started it. Yeah.
Well, Brendan says he still hasn't recovered, so that was good.
And he would know. He
from
knows
the trail runs.
I understand. You guys are monsters. They push each other. I'll tell you, Katie, let me tell you how I met Jack Roach. Well, I knew Jack Roach. Of course I knew him. I was a swim coach, and everybody knew Jack. And we watched the whole Mission Bay thing come up. I was coaching at Florida State. And Jack, I want to talk about that. When I drove down that, I remember nationals in Boca Raton, 97 maybe. But I remember most of all. 87.
Oh, wow.
I only lost a decade. It goes fast. Katie, pay attention. You tell Todd the same thing. You know, you guys enjoy every decade because you can lose one like that.
Oh, man.
87. Holy cow. So anyway,
born.
but this is back. And so I had known Jack through that. And, you know, I knew him and I knew Mark. And then I was the national team coach for open water. And I was following in Penny Dean's footsteps, and I had Rick Walker working with me, Dave Thomas, and then we had this camp out in California, and we were the first USA swimming team that's going to go to the new Olympic Training Center, right almost on the border of Mexico and San Diego. We're in San Diego County. They had this beautiful lake. When we booked the thing, they wouldn't let us swim in it. I mean, they said, no, you guys know it's all, you guys could end up urinating in the lake. And this is what we drink our reservoir water out of. We're like, you can let the guys row the boats in there. You're not going to let us bring it. We brought the national team in. We're living in the dorms. So we had to drive all over Southern California to find water, which was fine because they gave us vans and we had a good bonding time. And Jack offered to help out. We went to Imperial Beach, which is almost southern. I mean, and there was nothing but closeout waves, and we were driving out, or maybe it was Pacific Beach, Ocean Beach, but it was a big Southern California day, and it was just turning over. Jack and I had kayaks. Two of the other assistant coaches, who will remain nameless, had kayaks, and the four of us were going to go out and take this group of 25K Olympic, you know. We get to the other side. Swimmers make it through. The waves are maybe 5 to 7, but crashing, boom. And you've got to dig down. Like, if you're surfing, you can grab your board and duck dive. But if you're kayaking, it's a little, you know, you got to be ready. We had these, Jack, you remember that? We get to the outside. I look around, and there's the swimmers, and there's Jack, and there's our other coaches. They're like waving from the shore. Hey, we're not getting any closer. You remember that day, Jack?
I do remember that very well. You and I got out, but the others didn't.
We had a great time, and we had a bonfire on the beach. And what Jack did and what he brought to that camp, even coming for a day or two, he came in and brought that personal touch. And what was it? How was he known on the national team, Katie? What was Jack's nickname that you were thinking?
I always say Yoda. I always say the Yoda of USA Swimming. That's what I say, or just of life. I mean, he doesn't look like that though. That's not.
Oh yeah, there you go, Jack. I've heard more than one national team athlete say much the same. Yes, that you were very much.
Or the wise owl. That's another one I say, or I think I've heard. So I just feel like Jack will give you.
You know that, Jack?
Pardon?
Have you heard that?
Yes.
You were the Yoda?
Okay, well.
Yoda. See, Brendan has my back on that one.
Oh, yeah. It's a good thing, Jack. You really don't look green. You're just wise. You know, your ears aren't like that, but your brain works like it. Or you could lift the spaceship, you know, that kind of thing. Very positive-minded.
Positive-minded, but what I'll say is like, what were you going to say, Jack?
I want to talk about Katie.
I know. I already could tell you that right now he's sitting here being like, stop talking about me. And that's why you're Yoda. That's why, because you don't like getting credit, but you should get all the credit. So.
That's awesome.
Okay, for Katie, you are now teaching fitness. And what is one exercise you do know you didn't do as a swimmer that you wish you did? That's from Brendan. That's a great question.
That's a great question. Help me out here with that one. I'm trying to think of like all the stuff that we do that I'm like, I wish that you know what's one that I did at the very, very tail end of my career. So I feel like that's cheating a little bit, Brendan, but is banded kettlebell swings. Like I think I did some kettlebell swings, but having like a band with it, I felt like really helped with being explosive, having resistance really on every point of the movement. And I feel like it helped my breaststroke. And Brendan, I didn't just say that because you're a breaststroker, but I feel like it really helped with my timing. And I think I dropped like 2 seconds in my 100 and 200 breaststroke at the very tail end of my career in 2016 when I started doing those. And I feel like
so what are you talking about on this? What are you talking about on this? What exactly are you talking about?
What are they? So
yes.
So you've seen kettlebell swings?
Yep.
Okay. So essentially like you attach a band to the handle, you bring the band down, you step on the band, and then you actually, you know, do the kettlebell swing through your legs and up, and it just creates an extra amount of resistance that you don't receive. And it really forces you to drive through your hips. And yeah, that was something that my husband actually, when he was training me, introduced me to, and I've been obsessed with them ever since.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, so and just, I mean, we know people can Google Katie Hoff, but so you've got this fitness thing going on. Where do people follow you? What's the best platforms to check you out if they want to learn more about fitness and what you're suggesting?
Yeah, so my husband and I during quarantine started Synergy Dryland. So we're working with some teams now, some individuals. So we'll put a lot of different exercises there. That's another thing I would say is I don't think when I was swimming, I realized how much the mobility piece mattered. I think I wish I had done more. And so we do a lot of examples of strength movements, explosive movements, mobility, soft tissue work. So really working foam rolling, activation with mini bands. So Synergy Dryland, our website, which is www.synergydryland.com, and then our Instagram page, which is @Synergy So we try to put up some examples for people to check out.
Now, that's great. I know all the USA teams, Joe, you guys all up. Everybody's been since March doing all kinds of crazy things online and dry land. I remember you as a young swimmer, Katie. Did you do a lot of dry land as a 10, 12? Like, where'd you come into? Like, did you just do push-ups? Or I know a little bit about your program, but tell us, and where did you make the transition from being age group swimmer to being, oh man, maybe I'm good enough to go on a national team?
I feel like they just kind of like blended very quickly together. You know, I went into 2020 2004, a year out from 2004, I came to my coach and I was just saying, okay, I've done well at nationals. I'm, maybe top 15, 16 in the nation. If I could just make a final at the 2004 trials, I'd be pumped with that. And then that year, I think I dropped like 5 seconds in my 200 IM and 12 seconds in my 400 IM, and suddenly 3 months out from trials, I'm ranked #1 in the nation. So it just happened at this rapid pace. I went from age grouper, which I was 14 years old, to making the team. And I think it was a combination of, I switched teams. I started working with Paul Yetter at NBAC. I think that I started working on kicking. I think I dropped like 5 seconds in like a 50 freestyle kick. We did a lot more, squats and squat jumps and pull-ups. And so I think it was just a combination of everything coming together to help my development. And it just kind of took off without me expecting it to take off so quickly.
Jack, do you remember Katie splashing onto the scene? I do remember, because I was coaching in New Jersey at the time. We'd come down to the NBAC Christmas meet every year. So, watching you grow along was pretty special. But I think, Jack, the history of that team, even before Bob was there, Bowman and Yetter and what Murray Stevens had built there in the early years, he and Bob Matson were one of the few East Coast people that were really focusing on stroke mechanics and doing some of those things at intense levels. And technically, when you moved in with Paul and you're swimming for Yetter, and did you think the change there in terms of not just breaststroke, because you were also one of the best distance swimmers, or you swim 400 IM. You could swim anything, Katie. and right? What? Didn't Ledecky break one of your records in the 1,000? Wasn't that your 1,000 record?
That was. She broke my mile and my 1,000 record. Yeah. Sorry.
She's lucky. She was lucky.
The possible person to break it is, like, if I had to pick anyone, it would be her. But yeah, I think the biggest thing and the biggest draw for me was I was such a, specific swimmer. And when I say that, like, I'll never forget, I was at my first kind of like national team camp leading up to 2004. Like, they chose me, I think, like, it was like 3 or 4 months out. And, I was kind of like a hopeful at that point. And, the coach had said, actually, I think it was Eddie Reese, was like, all right, we're going to do, 10 100s, descend, by 3, 3, and then 4. And I was like, okay, well, like, times, like, he's like, we'll just go like strong and then go fast. I'm like, okay, well, like, what does strong mean? He's like, it's strong. And I was like, no, but like, can you be more specific? Like, I always wanted like exact times. And that's what Paul really, like, when I remember going there before even moving from Virginia, and it was a Saturday morning, and we were doing just like a very basic set of some 200s, and he had it broken down, like, it literally each 200, the splits I needed to go. And I just fell in love with that. I just have always been very specific and enjoy really understanding where I measure up. And I think that's what would help me take off and help me really gain confidence, because if I was hitting the exact paces in practice, I was going to swim faster than meet, because I just had that confidence behind me.
100%. I think you got to do that. I think a lot of people are like that. That's the way to do it.
Yeah, I think there definitely are some, I think, swimmers who are more, that I've even known, that are more about feel and that's their style, but it's just, sometimes I wish I was a little more like that.
Yeah, I think, Jack, when we had Anthony Irvin on, we were talking to him, he had a different kind of, his focus was different. But Jack, you've got to work with not just Katie, but so many of the greats. Aaron Pearsall's trapped at your house for 6 months. And these elite athletes. What is one thing that is a common thread amongst them? There's so many different personalities that make the Olympic team, but what would you say you see that is a standard trait?
And your mute's on.
Oh, yeah. You got your mute button on. Take the mute off. We can do that, right?
No, I don't think we can.
Jack. Yeah. Okay. So, Jack, give us a standard trait. What's similar amongst these Olympians? Go ahead.
Yeah, I think that number one is they're all optimistic. I think number two is they think it's going to work out no matter what. I think the best definition I've ever heard of mental toughness is when nothing is going right, what's the next best thing? And that's what every one of them have the ability to do. They just move on. If it's not working, put it behind you, move forward. They do get stuck, obviously, right? They're humans, but they are very optimistic and they believe it's going to work out. I think the other thing that seems to be a common thread is they hate to lose more than they love to win. And if you really think about that, what ends up happening if you live your life like that as an athlete is you'll do whatever it takes not to feel the pain of losing. So they're willing to make the compromises that the average athlete's just not willing to make.
Yeah, that is the fuel.
I feel like it, people always ask her like, what compromises, what sacrifices did you have to make to, become an Olympic swimmer? And like, it doesn't feel like a sacrifice to you when your viewpoint is like, I'm going to do everything possible to accomplish this goal. It's just like, yeah, like, of course I'm not going to do this. Or of course I'm going to make this decision that I know is going to help me get to this goal. And it no longer feels like a sacrifice if it's worth it.
Yeah.
And those types of people stay for an extra 15 or 20 minutes or an extra 30, or they're in the weight room doing an extra few reps or whatever. I always see those types of kids doing that.
Or there was I always tell this story where I literally did a Saturday morning practice, missed my paces on all 10 200s, and asked if I could go back that Saturday afternoon and do the set again because I was so angry that I didn't hit the pace. And, I think I didn't think that was weird or a sacrifice. It was just like, okay, well, I don't want to be standing behind the blocks in a year from now and look back and go, I could have maybe done a little bit better on that one set.
Joe, Jack, is there any question why she's so successful to this day? I mean, that type of thinking, Katie, is what every coach dreams of, having kids think that way. And they're out there, and we can motivate them, Jack. We can. We do things, Joe. I found myself elevating my coaching lately because I'm allowing myself to be coached for the first time in 40 years since I was competing. And I'm going to I'm doing this solid course. So I have these really fit instructors that are telling me, come on, you can do it, in a very positive minded way. But for 50 minutes, you're doing Pilates, sweating, and you're in the room with, and you don't want to let anybody down. It's a team. So now I switch it around, and I'm working with these young kids that are 12 and 13, aren't quite on our senior team, on the beach today doing dry land. And I'm channeling the same kind of stuff you're saying, Katie, what Jack gave to all of his athletes. Jack, tell us a story about an athlete that not necessarily shocked you, but maybe surprised you, but it was like, this athlete came through, and I remember this really was impactful, and you learned something from an athlete, because so many times we tell the stories about us teaching athletes, but Joe, you and I know, we learn from you athletes, Katie. Us coaches learn daily. So Jack, how about something that you learned from an athlete through the years?
Well, I don't think there's any one national team athlete that I couldn't talk about in terms of my growth through observing them. And I at some point in my career working with the national team and the national junior team, I started to realize that every single one of them possessed all of the insights they needed to reach their full potential. I was not capable of answering those questions for them. I think so often, though, like everyone else in life that's striving to accomplish something, they become self-centered. And when I say self-centered, I'm using that term. They are so exhausted from what they're doing. The pressure of what they're trying to accomplish is so difficult that they have to self-center because they're that tired. And my approach was always, how do we better center that person? And it ended up being more of me asking them questions that I felt like they did. They already had the answer for it. But it was helping them center themselves to a place where they could start to reason through that on their own. And, I don't believe that I can motivate someone. I believe that I can point someone towards inspiration. Motivation is this short-lived thing that they're getting dopamine on every day on their phones. And when you can start to help someone look at what truly inspires them, then you're moving into an area that is pretty magical for a young person.
Inspiration is an unbelievable thing, isn't it? Joe, you've been inspired. You were inspired today, I'm sure.
Well, we had a couple of good practices. So yeah, I was inspired by a bunch of kids out there training pretty hard, after a long break. So yeah, they're working pretty hard. I get inspired every day when I walk into the pool and someone wants to train hard. That's awesome.
And yet hearing Katie speak, and people talk to her about sacrifice, I think Dave Gibson had it right. It's not a sacrifice, it's a choice. This is what Katie wanted to do. She wanted to come back and do a second practice to make her goal. She had goal times that day. She said, please let me come back, and I want to do this again. And Jack, what were you had something, I think I just cutting you off, you were going to say?
Not really, but the other part that I think is so critical to reach your full potential is being able to do that hard work that's so difficult for even people my age to do, where you really start to get to know yourself, like understand your philosophy as a person. And I wanted to bring that up because during this time where people weren't swimming, Aaron and I started to do a few of these Zooms with different teams. And Aaron and I had a lot of national team athletes on, but when we brought Katie on, I saw this transition that I don't see many people make at her age, where she has such clear insights on who she is as a young lady, how she conducts her life, and she drives every single one of her thoughts into action based on a philosophy that she has, that she lives by. And you can't get that young enough. If we could start to teach that as coaches to young people, that's how they put their framework back together when it starts to collapse in a hostile environment. And, if you think about fear, and fear's a very powerful thing, and it's healthy because it's warning you not to do something that you haven't done before without understanding their consequences. When we don't allow people to fail in a healthy way, then fear becomes anxiety because it's continuous. And that's where we get into trouble with athletes, because anxiety is not healthy. And that's really what most of these athletes are dealing with when they leave the sport, if they leave the sport without coming to terms with their philosophy.
And so making a choice, fear kind of is, as I look at it, is a short-term motivator maybe, but not as you said, build into anxiety. You don't want that, but you build out of love, that passion, that joy, that excitement of touching first, that thrill of building whatever your long-term dreams are. Katie, what I'm thinking about for someone like you is that, certainly people who don't know swimming go, oh my gosh, Katie Hoff, 3 Olympic medals, unbelievable success. Look, she has an unbelievable husband, had like the career and this and that. Was it hard for you because you're also that young girl that popped right onto the scene, and all of a sudden expectations are super high, and they're saying, well, we don't want you to just go to the Olympics. We want you to be, coming back with Michael Phelps type 7-8 world records and gold medals. And certainly that was dumped on you almost because you were there at Michael's time, right?
Yeah, it's funny. Like, I think as Jack mentioned, it's taken me a really long time to even understand what you just said. Like, I think when I was in it, when I was, just turned 15, I certainly wasn't expecting that. And then to go and fail, in my mind, in a lot of people's mind, by not winning a medal at 15, and then going to 2008 and swimming, now that I look back on swimming well, I was half second off the best time, broke an American record, and to not feel good about that, and then to end my career in, the way that I didn't want to. I got my pulmonary embolism, which cut my career short. I had to really kind of step back, and it took me, almost 5 years to even feel like I could authentically speak about the sport of swimming and kind of find my identity. Because as you mentioned, because I burst, now that I'm looking back on this, like, because I burst on the scene so early, like, my identity was everything of winning and medals. And, when that wasn't happening at certain times, like post 08, 2009, didn't even make the world championship team. Everything, my self-esteem, confidence, everything was like at an all-time low because I wasn't swimming fast. So why would people want to talk to me? It sounds crazy, but that's what happens, and that's what happened. And then when I retired, it was figuring out again, okay, well, now what? That I didn't have that. You talk about that love and that passion and those goals, like, those were gone. Like, I didn't know now what? Now what's going to make me feel extraordinary? Now what's going to make me feel passionate? I just didn't know. And it's a very, very scary feeling to feel like you're just like stepping off a cliff and hoping that like a branch comes out some way and you can grab onto it, but you don't know where that branch is. So, yeah.
So how'd you get it back? How'd you get the self-esteem back? Bess had a great thing there, and that being able to share it is awesome. And so how did you get it back? What turned the corner for you?
Like after my career, or within my career? After
your career, because every swimmer after the career is like, now what? And yeah, you're down, you're sad, whatever. And then so what turned the corner for you?
I think it was just a lot of people around me who just let me, grieve, to be honest, and understood and didn't make me feel like I needed to like suddenly come back to swimming. Or, my husband, for example, like never pushed, why are you not going to a clinic, or why are you not giving a speech? Like, if I wasn't ready to do that, like, that was okay. And, I kind of like fell off the mat for a while because it was too painful for me. And so I kind of had to go through, I started at an entry-level job. That certainly didn't feel good, but it kind of allowed me to define other things that I'm good at outside of just being Katie the Olympic medalist. Like, I needed to be able to define that. And for the longest time, I didn't want people to know that I was a swimmer. Like, I just didn't want to. And then being able to kind of come back full circle, I was able to write my book recently.
Let's stop there, because what can we say? This is a place where all of us who want to know more about the details of this story, because Jack, Joe and I know, we know the Katie Hoff story is extraordinary. I've been blessed enough to see you as an age grouper growing up at NBAC, and even before that, before you switched clubs. Now, maybe when Thanksgiving, when can we get some information on this new book coming out? What can you tell us?
So yes, it's coming out Black Friday, so the day after Thanksgiving. And yeah, I'm really proud. It was something, it's more of like a memoir, and I definitely get very vulnerable, and that's really what I wanted. Jack's read it. It's really what I wanted to do, and it's why it took me 5 years of post-retirement to actually sit down and write one, because again, there was so many things that I needed to face. There were so many memories that were either painful or I just didn't want to deal with. And I didn't want to write this book, this just kind of like puffy book that wasn't real, and I wasn't being truthful, and I wasn't hopefully impacting others in a really positive way by just telling my story very authentically. And so I'm really, really proud of it. There was definitely some hard moments of writing it, but it really allowed me to frame how I view my career, how I view my life, my transition, everything, by kind of putting the words down to paper. So.
You know, that was probably a good sense of therapy as well. You know, clearing up everything and just going through your mind and going, okay, I'm cleaning out the closet. You know, I'm getting everything going here. And that's cool. That's awesome.
Yeah. And being able to, I mean, that was another thing. Like, I never wanted to, obviously I had some really high highs and some pretty low lows. And I never wanted to, I was always struggling with like, okay, how do I frame the low lows? Like, I don't want it to seem negative, but like, there's so much that you can learn from low lows. And I think, you know, I definitely, you know, grew the most from those. I know it sounds cliche, but I did. And so I wanted to frame it in a way that, you know, younger swimmers or really anyone could read it and learn from it, even if they were experiences that were maybe painful for me.
The stress of this sport can be overwhelming. And your old teammate, of course, Michael Phelps, has been a big spokesman for you know, trying to get over the mental issues that a lot of people feel, and not just in our sport, but certainly, you know, in these Olympic level athletes. Bess had a question for you, Jack. What advice do you have for the swimmers as they retire? And now I know it's different probably for each one, but what do you tell them?
You know, I do believe it is a different path for everyone. Can you all hear me all right?
Yes.
Yeah, I do think it's a different path for everyone. And, you know, to me, like, I think the biggest lesson that I'm starting to learn from all of this isn't what you tell them after they're out of the sport. It's like the people that really need to be seeing the people that know how to handle this professionally are the coaches. They are the common denominator through all of this. And if we knew how to handle athletes a little bit better, I think that this would be addressed far before they're leaving the sport. I like to believe that anyway. I believe that the impact a coach can have on an athlete who is really centered on doing one thing, and that's performing in the pool. If you can somehow expand that into how do they become, and I know that most of us try, but how professionally equipped are we? And that would be my message, is how do we get these psychologists out to the coaches that understand how to handle an athlete a little bit better. I have been in touch with Michael over the past month, and, you know, his struggles they're real, but they're no different than almost everyone else I talk to leaving the sport. Very, very few, if any, leave the sport. I did talk to Maya Dorado maybe a month ago. She's got it together, man.
Really?
For her
wow. Mic dropped and just very impressive.
But then the other part is, like, Katie figured it out. And I really believe she figured it out on her own. But you know, when I watched her leave the sport, basically in 15, I was concerned with her. That's fair to say, right, Katie?
Yeah.
And then 2 years later, 3 years later, she has started to carve a path for her where I'm just going, holy smokes, I need to be around that.
Well, Katie, maybe it had something to do with that baseball game in Tampa when you were throwing out the first pitch. Bring Todd over. Tell us his story. Where's your husband?
Why don't you slide on in here?
Sid's
going to join us? Get in. There you go. All right. Now.
Hey, Jack. Good to see you.
Hey, Todd,
Katie, fill us in on how this all happened and where you're at.
So yeah, I'll set it up and then you can tell your part. So I mean, we met right after, or we met before 2012, and then basically in 2012, I got sick of the trials. I was having a really rough time, and he had been awesome. He had reached out to me before and was wishing me luck. Asked if I would. I was sponsored by Speedo, and asked, "Oh, could you send me like a USA Swimming shirt? Like, I'd love to support during the meet." And I didn't want to say anything, but like, getting a XXL like USA Speedo shirt is not like, hey Speedo, like, do you have any XXL? So I remember like went online, like ordered it for him, like shipped it off, like kind of had a crush at this point. And then, oh, Jason, yeah, it's okay. And yeah, when I, just really kept in touch and just got it, so many people, when you don't do well or don't make the team, or, like, it's okay, don't worry about it. And you're like, no, it's not okay. And he just, I remember, reached out and was like, hey, my thoughts and prayers are with you, with like 3 purple hearts. Knew that was my favorite color. So good move there. And and then we kind of really formed a connection from there. And at that point, like moved in together, like really soon after that. Dated, and then within the year and a half, he started dropping hints like, I just put like $100 in the ring fund, like it's gonna be a while. And I'm like, that's fine, like I know we're gonna get married, like I don't care at all. And then we got invited to a baseball game. I'll let you go from there.
Yeah, so I mean, I had this all planned out. So like, pretty much everyone in Florida knew that this was going to happen, besides Katie, which is impressive. Katie's not the best detective, I will say that. So I felt confident that we could keep it under wraps.
A little oblivious sometimes.
Yeah, so we got to know one of the owners for the Rays pretty well, and I had them reach out and ask her to throw the first pitch, and it was actually all a setup. So like, it was really cool. We had my parents fly in, her parents fly in. She had no idea. It's like they were staying across the hall from us, and they would like text me like, hey, we need to get food. Like, can we leave our hotel room? We have to coordinate all the moves. And
I'm just freaking out about like, I don't want to be on like the not top 10 on ESPN because I threw a terrible first pitch.
So I knew that, if you know Katie, she's probably the most laser focused person. So I knew that if they just told her, stare at the catcher until we give you the signal, like she was not going to look anywhere.
Locked in.
Like forever. It could have been a year and she'd still be standing on the mound. So then I just ran from center field, and of course she didn't look away, even though like the crowd was like yelling and stuff, and just laser for the whole time.
Even then, when he got down on he came with like all these flowers, like these roses, and I remember still being like I haven't thrown the first pitch, like, why are you giving me flowers? And I still put it together, and then he got down on me, and you can see it, and I'm shocked beyond belief. So yeah, that was pretty special. Fun. Yeah, that helped. He helped a ton. Like, he's humble, but he played elite football. Started at Michigan State and then played for the Rams for a while. So it was nice to, I think that helped a ton with transition. Like, obviously family helps, but having someone living with you that understands day to day what you're going through was just huge.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And that's what's important in life. And you two now have found this place where you can inspire so many others with the fitness, with the synergy and everything coming off of this, and that's what, and your national teammate, Elizabeth Beisel, with her silver linings, told us, that there's something good that can come out of all this. And like Jack's saying, remembering all that heavy pressure as a 15 to 16, 17, your one goes up, down. And now here you are giving back to the community of not just aquatics, but of young people around, because all of us are dealing with this. We all are grieving something, whether it's your high school graduation or not being able to play water polo last spring or whatever it is. We all have it. Right, Jack? You must be advising a few. I think
pretty nice.
You like that story with Todd, and you knew it was going to happen, or were you watching the Rays baseball game? I was.
No, I was watching it. I did not know that was going to happen.
Yeah. It was kind of a surprise. We all wanted to see if Katie was going to throw it in the dirt, and then here comes Todd with the ring.
I mean, I didn't feel good about the throw, to be honest. I was a little nervous.
Yeah, I was like practicing for like a week and a half. Like,
she even had like some of the Rays pitchers like trying to like teach her before the game. It was not. I think they had. It was half date, half trying to teach her how to pitch. But little did they know I was about to propose.
So the throw happened.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I had to do it after we proposed. So then it was like, then I threw it to him.
First off, that's just an excuse. Taking it.
Yeah, well, that's hard.
So much for the not making excuses and trying hard all the time.
I bounced it, but at least At least it went straight.
It looks closer. It looks closer than it really is.
I was a catcher in high school, so I felt confident in my abilities.
Yeah.
You can always lay out. You can always lay out and get it, whatever which way it goes.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. It's like my golf game, Katie. As long as it goes straight, I don't care. You know,
That part.
All right. Well, Joe, this has been a pretty special night. You know, having not just Katie, but we get a bonus with Todd and Jack Roach, and guys, before we sign off and call it a night, you know, I want to thank you both, but I want to give you both a chance to also, you know, leave us with some thoughts, or maybe, you know, you both have been, as we talked about the word inspiration, not just inspirational, but really more of almost like a head doctor on many occasions. Jack, I've seen you do it. Katie, now following you and Todd on the internet and seeing all the wonderful things and seeing how you, as Joe said, turn the corner. I would love if you would each just, you know, give us a little bit of thought and maybe some words of wisdom, you know, but before we sign off tonight. Jack, it looks like you're walking through the house. So Katie, maybe we'll start with you first. Something you can leave us with, and then we'll have Jack follow up. And he's looking for, he's going to recharge his phone because he's almost, that's good. Oh, we got it. It's okay. It's okay. We're in we're in the single digits, as we call it, Jack.
You got to stay on, because I've already had a couple people that want to say hi to you, Jack. Want to stay on for the after show just for a couple minutes.
Please, yes.
Oh yeah. You both stay on for the after show. That we just can't televise that.
Katie, you're on.
I'm on. Oh my gosh. I mean, I think for me, like you talk about turning the corner, it's just understanding, you know, I hate saying the why, but understanding like what drives you, like what excites you. And for me, you know, it started out, I think for the longest time, I felt like, oh my God, it's swimming. How am I ever going to find that same feeling, that same charge, that same joy that swimming brought me for so long? And I think after a lot of self-reflection and looking back, it was, okay, it's the vehicle that swimming was. And swimming and trying to be the best in the world and swimming for Team USA made me feel extraordinary. And what I found is that I just had to find another vehicle to make me feel extraordinary. And now that's, like you mentioned, it's giving back. It's, you know, being able to tell my story to hopefully positively impact others. And that's where I get my extraordinary feeling again. And that's, you know, really something that I have full control over. And I think that's what I would advise anyone, like understand like what you're doing. It's not necessarily what you're doing, it's that feeling that it gives you, and then go after and find that and be able to kind of embrace the suck that is. It might take you a year, 5 years to find it again. Just keep driving, keep going, keep picking yourself back up. That's really what I've done, because I did not find my extraordinary for a while after swimming, but I finally got there, and I'm you know, truly the happiest I've been in a really long time. So
that's awesome.
That is awesome. That's well stated, young lady. And we have no doubt we're going to keep following you, because extraordinary is your middle name.
Oh,
oh yeah. All right. And there, Jack, the absolute best. So many of the women say that about you, Jack, you know. All right, Jack, give us some final words of wisdom.
And, you know, Katie is making a change with so many people as well. Okay, here we go. A story first, right? I once heard this term, talk to me and I'll listen. Tell me the truth and I'll believe. Tell me a story and I'll remember it forever. And I've told this story a number of times, but I just can't get it out enough. And it's particularly fresh on my mind since Aaron's been here for the past 6 months. But in Rome in 2009 at World Championships, Aaron had swam the 100 backstroke, was his first event, and he hadn't calculated he hadn't calculated the semifinals the right way, and he didn't make the top 8, so he he was the world record holder and didn't make the finals at World Championship. And, you know, even though everyone thought, well, that was just a calculated mistake, you do concern yourself with someone who isn't having a good meet and wonder what might happen next in the next event. And the next to the last night of the meet, about 4 days after Aaron's 100 backstroke, he swam the 200 backstroke, and he did make it to the finals. And that night, it's hard to really describe what Rome looked like, the way the pool was set up, but it was in a venue that took place. The pool itself was in an area where the 1960 Olympics were held. So there was this real rich history with all of these marble statues and all of these other things that were just fascinating to look at. And the pool was set up where the crowd sat in a horseshoe shape at the start end, and there were probably 10 to 12,000 people there. And above them were all these olive trees that were planted in the 60s, and they were just absolutely gorgeous. And every night when finals started, the sun was setting, and they were spectacular as well. I mean, it was hard not to just stand there and look at it. And Aaron always had this reputation of being the last one out of the water, the last one to the ready room, to a point that I think FINA made a rule that basically forced Aaron to get to the ready room sooner. The Aaron Pearsall ready room rule. You know that, right, Sid?
It is correct. Yes, that is truth. Yes.
And so this is his night of the 200 back final. And I happened to be working with him that night, and he had swam a 50 from the start end to the turn end. And I gave him a time, and we're looking back at the crowd and we're talking, and, you know, at time's getting close. He's not in the first event, but that was back in the suit era when you had to go through 3 ready rooms. And I'm thinking, Aaron, you need to get to the ready room. You're in the second event. And he's looking at the crowd. He's looking at me, and he's looking at the sunset. He's looking at the olive trees. He hops out of the water and he pulls 2 chairs together. The chairs are in disarray where the judges sit at the turn end. He pulls 2 of them together, and he looks at me and he goes, Jack, sit down. And I'm thinking, dude, you got to get to the ready room. But I go, okay, I'm going to sit down. So I sit down, and Aaron crosses his legs and he puts his arm around me. And I'm going, oh my gosh, Aaron, get to the ready room. And he goes, Jack, look at this. We'll never experience this again together as long as we live. Look at the sunset. Look at this crowd. And at that particular meet, the Germans had all of these young kids coming in dressed in these like fantastic looking uniforms that were so colorful. And they stood out and they were yelling. And so really and truly, longer than I thought we should be there, we sat there and talked about anything but swimming, to a point where I became very comfortable with it. And I finally said, Aaron, I think we really need to get going, although neither one of us wanted to leave. And I stood up and I started walking away, and I looked back, and Aaron was still sitting there. And I thought to myself, if that guy makes it to his race, he's going to be fine. And that's the race where he set the world record that is still the world record today. And, you know, once again, I'm 40 years older than somebody that's still teaching me lessons. And the lesson from that is nothing special happens if you aren't operating in the moment. It doesn't happen. And Aaron put it together like that. Would that have happened for Aaron had he not been thinking the way that he was thinking? I don't think so.
Probably not.
Nothing magical happens if you aren't operating in the moment. And that's my lesson.
That was awesome. That was an awesome story.
Joe, I was there that night. I remember. I didn't know the intricate story. I may have heard parts of it, but I remember Aaron's race. Unbelievable.
I tell all my kids this all the time. Do you remember the interview after he broke the world record? So he and Lochte are standing there, right? And Lochte's in a suit. Aaron's not in a suit, right? He's in just a regular suit. And I forget who it was.
He had legs.
Right. It was Rowdy or someone was interviewing. I can't remember who it was. And they said, why didn't you wear a suit? And he goes, didn't need it. Didn't need it. He didn't need the suit. Everybody else needed it. But he said it so calm. He goes, didn't need it.
Well, to be fair, if there's people watching who don't really know, Aaron Pearsall, we're talking about in 2000, Ryan Lochte. These guys were gods in terms of aquatic backstroke history, and still both of them. But that race you're talking about, and you're right, there was so much magic. And Jack, thank you for that story, because that completes a circle. That same week, I went with some very dear friends, 100 yards walk down. You know what? Those world championships were so big. Bruce Springsteen moved his concert start date back from 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. He never came on till 11. I was there with Dale Newberger and Dennis Miller. We had a great crew, but it was a magical area in Rome. And what Pearsall did that night is still the world record. You're right, Joe. Amazing. Just wearing legs, right? The other guys were full body suits.
Well, it was awesome. It was the most awesome interview I've ever seen in my life. And he was so calm about it. He was just like,
there's a backstory to that too. He wanted to honor the fact that people were swimming without those a couple of years before. And he felt like in order to really do it the right way, he wanted as little of a full suit on as possible.
Wow.
Well,
awesome. we know that Aaron is going to come on with us in the not too distant future. He just spent 6 months at Jack's house building boats and surfboards and surfing the Outer Banks. And geez, the two of you have lent a very magical evening to Swim Monkey TV tonight. We are greatly indebted. Of course, now you know what that means, Katie, that you're regulars. You know, you have to come back.
Of course. Thank you so much for having us too. This has been so fun.
Well,
and by the way,
I hope that.
Go ahead.
I truly hope that Katie and I honored what you all are attempting to do here or are doing here, and that people have takeaways from this. That's very important.
Bob Matson told me, Jack, he said, all that is not shared is lost. And you two shared a great deal with us tonight of your true personalities and realities, and just thank you, because like you were talking, Jack, we're all human. Everybody's human, you know, and people love to see that about people like you. So thank you both. And Joe, another very successful night. Stories.
I mean, we keep getting people on here that are just incredible, and I'm so fortunate to have you guys come on. And it's just, I love all these stories, and I feel more brilliant every time we have one of these, Sid. It's crazy.
Yep. And now that we have two more beautiful recurring guests, we'll see you both on the next interview. Interviews, sit down, talk, chat, whatever we call it. Thank you all. Thank everyone, really, for having the time to follow us along. And we will see you again soon on Stories.
Awesome.
Katie, good to see you.
Join us on the Swim Monkey.
Swim
Monkey.
Monkey TV. On the Monkey.